Hello, everyone. A very good evening to most of you and afternoon to some. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for your time and joining us today. Myself, Namrita Sahu, and I head EXIN India and other SAARC countries. With us, we have speakers Suzanne Galletly, Portfolio Director at EXIN and Chief Examiner at IFTC, introducing VeriSM. We have Steve Leach, Head of Service Management from 6.6 Cloud Gateway, sharing the positive impact and business benefits of VeriSM. And we have Satya Misra, General Manager from HCL, sharing the implementation approach inside large scale organizations. For all of you to know, we will have some time for question and answers at the end of our presentation, but of course, you may type it already when it comes to you. With that, I'm pleased to hand over to Suzanne.
Thank you very much, Namrata, and welcome everybody as well from my side. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction of VeriSM. I think most of you have heard of it, perhaps some of you not. So just to provide a brief introduction. But before I even go there, I think it's important to say something about the background about why VeriSM was developed actually and emerged. And obviously that's the digital age that we live in today. And you know, the digital age offers us new challenges, but also new opportunities. And part of those are around new business and engagement models. So it's enabling access to new market spaces, exploiting technology for competitive gain. Obviously, there's some technologies like AI and blockchain, which are perhaps still emerging. Others like automation and cloud computing have moved into the mainstream, but they're enabling us in the digital age to exploit technology to get a competitive differentiation, if you like, and also speed to market, because digital promises the ability as well to be able to bring new products and services to the market very quickly. So this is, if you like, the promise of the digital age in terms of the opportunities that it offers to do business in a different way, to be more innovative and to create customer loyalty via new ways of working. And of course, as well as these opportunities that are offered by the digital age, there's always a negative reason as well to do something. This was reported by the CEO of Accenture to the World Economic Forum, that digital is the main reason why over 50% of the companies that were on the Fortune 500 list in 2000 have since disappeared. So sometimes, of course, adapting to the digital age isn't just a nice to have or enabling you to get more market share or differentiate yourself, but sometimes it's a pure question of survival. And let's be honest, a number of companies have discovered that as well to their peril. So what are the success factors then to be able to be successful in the digital age and to be able to perform a successful digital transformation? This is from a survey from Fujitsu in 2018, and they identified these 6 capabilities, if you like, which organizations need to develop to be successful with their digital transformation. And you know, some of them are around getting value from data. Organizations typically, even if they have big data, they are struggling with how to leverage it and how to use it to transform that into value, if you like. So getting value from data is part of it, and being able to integrate things effectively and the ecosystem. But there's also very much some people factor capabilities there, making sure you have the right leadership style to be able to support digital transformation. It's about people, it's about being agile and able to embrace change, which is, of course, a given in the digital age. And in terms of then professionals, in terms of the skills which are needed for the digital age, and this is from Deloitte University Press, and they identified a number of different skill areas which professionals need to develop for the digital age, to be successful in the digital age. And again, you know, technological savviness is there, because of course you need to be able to understand technology effectively in order to be able to know how to take advantage of it. But there's a lot of other things there, and we ask a lot of the professional of today. We almost expect them to be a kind of entrepreneur, being able to think up innovative solutions. We expect them to understand the business, also a UX design, so we expect them to be able to place themselves in the consumer of services. And we expect a lot in terms of behavior as well. They need to be able to be agile, work in a flexible way, and be collaborative in the way they're working together with others. So it's a big ask of the professional of today. It's a broad range of skills that are needed to be successful in this digital age. And of course, that leads sometimes to a kind of war for talent, because organizations are fighting with each other, if you like, to be able to attract people with the right set of broad competencies. And, probably 5 or 10 years ago, we were always looking for the silver bullet, one thing that will solve all our problems. But I think most organizations today have realized that in the complex environment that businesses are operating in today in the digital age, that there is no silver bullet anymore. And this is actually from a survey in 2017 that 85% of the respondents reported that they already use other frameworks and best practices together with IT service management. I think if we were to do that anno 2019 today, it would be more like 90 or 95%. There's no silver bullet anymore, so you need to integrate different practices, different technologies in order to be able to get the outcomes you need to be successful in the digital age. So all of this is basically the background to VeriSM. VeriSM was developed because it needed to address these new challenges of the digital age, the new opportunities that it offered, and existing solutions were coming up short in being able to handle that. So that's the background why VeriSM emerged. And it was actually commissioned by an organization called the IFDC, which is the International Foundation for Digital Competencies. And the IFDC is actually a non-for-profit foundation which was set up to help develop the competencies needed by professionals and organizations in the digital age. And as a non-for-profit organization, of course, it needs to be strong by working together with different partners. These are the current partners of the IFDC, and it includes, for example, HCL Technologies based in India, and later you will hear from Satya Misra, who is from HCL Technologies as well. So these are the current partners of the IFDC working together to set up VeriSM as a community approach. And just a few of the basic concepts of VeriSM. I'm aware I've got limited time, so I'm just going to go through a couple of the main things. One is that VeriSM provides guidance around how to organize and which capabilities and competencies and behaviors you need to develop to be successful in the digital age. So it's very much about creating that mindset that you need for the digital age. And of course, that's quite difficult. Most organizations are able to solve their technology issues by insourcing, but changing a culture is, of course, something else, and is quite difficult sometimes because it's more about the behaviors and the mindset behind those behaviors. And VeriSM gives a lot of attention to this because obviously this is an important factor to be able to develop the competence and capabilities needed to be successful with digital transformation. Another important point about VeriSM is that it's an enterprise-wide approach, and in that way it sort of does away with the whole IT and the business thing that we've had in the past. So if you think about a traditional perspective, IT was serving the business and business was the customer of IT. VeriSM has a different perspective. VeriSM sees IT as one of the many capabilities, and certainly a key capability, which is needed in order to be able to deliver value to the consumer through products and services. And IT needs to work with the other capabilities like HR, sales, marketing, legal, finance, etc., in order to reach the outcomes of the business and add value through those products and services. So in that way, it's not IT serving the business anymore, but IT is a fundamental part of the business itself. So it's truly an enterprise-wide approach. The VeriSM model itself is very simple. The consumer is running all the way through it. There's an outer circle of governance because everything you do should be, of course, related to the strategy, and you need to make sure you have the right level of control. There are service management principles defined, and these could be typically around quality and risk appetite and security, and these need to be applied across the organization. And the four high-level phases. Whatever you do with products and services, you need to define them, produce them, provide them, and then respond. But how you do that, if you do that in a waterfall way or more in an agile way, is not prescribed within VeriSM. And there's also this concept of the management mesh, which I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail. Again, the management mesh also is not really rocket science either. And yet it's a very powerful tool. It looks at 4 different aspects: resources, for example, people, budget, time, but also, for example, knowledge. It looks at environment. The organizational culture is part of that, but also the competitive environment, legislation that you may need to consider. It looks at management practices, and again, across the whole organization, so not only practices related to IT. And it looks at emerging technologies, AI and blockchain and cloud, and all the different technologies that can help you as well to meet your outcomes. And one of the things about it that's important is that it's tailored. So no one management mesh will look like another management mesh, because obviously there's no one size fits all. Every organization is unique. And in this way, the mesh can be tailored to suit your organization. And the other thing is it's flexible and responsive. As soon as new requirements come on board, for example, you are looking to implement a program of change related to where you need to be in the future, or maybe you're just introducing one new product or service, you can flex the mesh and again consider these 4 areas and where you may need to develop capability or resources that you don't have right now. And in that way, that's what you can see in this picture. You can map your baseline situation, the desired state situation, and really have a good view of what the gaps are so that you can source them effectively. So that's the management mesh in a nutshell. So again, I'm aware of time, so I'm going to wrap up here by saying that, VeriSM is not another framework. It's an umbrella approach. It's basically an umbrella approach that helps organizations to develop the culture and the structures and the mindset needed for successful digital transformation. It doesn't replace any other framework because it's not a framework itself. It's really that umbrella approach that helps you to bring it all together. So it helps organizations to integrate different methodologies, practices, technologies which support their digital strategies, and of course, very importantly, govern them under one model. So you can get rid of those organizational silos or project silos and govern it all under one model that is integrated. So VeriSM is an umbrella approach. And I think that's all for the introduction part, because I think the most important part today is to hear about how organizations are actually approaching it. So with that, I would like to hand over to Steve Leach from 6.6 Cloud Gateway. So please take it away, Steve.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Good.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, whatever time of the day it is where you are. Good afternoon. As Suzanne said, VeriSM is an umbrella approach, and we certainly need our umbrellas in the UK at the moment, but that's about the only joke I'll try and make on this presentation, I promise. What I'd like to do, now I've got a number of slides here, and I've got about 25 minutes, and I will get through them in time. I won't just read through the slides, I will try and use them as a backdrop. But what I need to explain is, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about myself and about the company I work for, not just to sing our praises or be clever, but that puts nicely in context the benefits I'm able to bring up in this slide to show how VeriSM has benefited the organization I now work for, okay? So I've been in and around service management for something like 25 years. Which is ironic because the company I work for now is a very young bunch of people. Some of them are only that old themselves. I've worked in both the public and the private sector. So I've seen how government organizations and how private enterprise work and actually implement service management. I've worked for Cable and Wireless, Vodafone. I've been an ITIL trainer. So I did come into my new job with a very, very strong bias and background towards ITIL. Lots of people consider me to be an ITIL expert. Their wording, not mine, but it says so on the old version 2 certificate. In January last year, I joined this company, 6.6, on the cloud gateway side of things. And the idea was being a new company, being a startup in cloud computing, the company I worked for, they needed a service management model that met their interests, that gave them what they want. So my initial thing was I'll fall back on ITIL. That was okay for a while, but I'll move on to why that didn't necessarily work. So in doing that, I passed the VeriSM Foundation exam. I made sure that me and all my service management team have at least got our foundation qualification in VeriSM, so we know what it is.
Steve, you seem to have dropped away.
Oh, hello. Oh, am I back now?
Yep.
Right. And has the slide, Suzanne, moved on to the cloud gateway story?
Yes, it has.
Yeah, I think we had a small network blip then that I hope won't repeat itself. Okay, but please somebody tell me if it happens again. So in 2012, 6.6 itself was formed as a consultancy organization delivering big data, cybersecurity, and digital transformation. It naturally followed then that the cloud gateway product developed by my colleagues became a separate company, because the idea is to deliver a hybrid platform as a service cloud connectivity product, enabling any business or enterprise to securely connect to any of its cloud providers. So connectivity and security are the absolute bywords, are the absolute unique selling points of this product. We have won, as some of you may be aware, we've won a number of high profile industry awards, and we've achieved PSN and HSCN accreditation. Now, for those of you not familiar with the UK government, that's Public Sector Network and Health Service Connectivity Network. So in other words, in order to be able to service customers who are in the UK government or health, you need to be accredited against these networks, and we have recently achieved that. This enables us to open our product and marketing opportunities to a far wider range of public and private sector companies. We now have a number of customers, all of whom I am supporting with my VeriSM-based support model, which I'll show you briefly in a moment. But first of all, I will highlight some of the benefits that VeriSM has brought to us. Trying hard to advance the slide. Here we go. Right. Now, some of you will be aware there's been 2 VeriSM books released. The first one was an introduction to VeriSM, and the second one was Unwrapped and Applied, which basically told organizations a little bit more about how to implement it. There were 15 documented benefits in that book. Now, to sit here and talk about all 15 would probably take 3 or 4 hours. So what I've tried to do is focus on the 4 that I'm showing on this slide and describe each of them in more detail. I'll say why this is a benefit and how we actually went about achieving it. So I'm not going to go through all the benefits. I'm just going to focus on these 4, okay? So benefit number 1, according to the book, and I'm in complete agreement, is integration of disparate practices. Now, I like to think that many people on this call probably aren't as old as me and probably haven't worked in a great monolithic organisation like the UK Ministry of Defence, where working within a silo was positively encouraged. You can't work in silos in the modern world, where you've got to rapidly deliver something, you've got to meet consumer requirements, you've got to all work together, and where you're a startup. So the way we actually integrated the disparate practices, as I matured my journey through VeriSM, I discovered this thing called the management mesh, which Suzanne talked about earlier on. And I loved your wording, Suzanne, the way you said all organizations use it differently, because as those of you can remember Suzanne's picture, my picture is completely different. I don't color code it red, amber, and green to indicate the maturity of each of the items I'm bringing out. I do it a different way. On the horizontal and vertical axes, I have the things we must think about when going to market, when developing products, when selling them and supporting them. And then within the mesh itself, I try and break them down to a lower level. So to give you an example, if you looked at the second amber vertical in, which talks about resources and managing practices, you'll see ITIL version 4. Now, I'll come across that again in a moment. But when I joined Cloud Gateway 18 months ago, ITIL 4 was only being thought of. It wasn't available. It didn't give me any information. So what I'm saying now is, look, I have enhanced my management mesh recently to say ITIL 4 is out there. There could be something there that is really useful that will mean I can support customers in a better way. So as a new product goes through our productization through transition into live, I and my colleagues need to be aware of the recommended best practice in ITIL 4. Otherwise, we will be missing something. Because as one of my DevOps friends in the company first said when I joined, I've used this quote before, he looked at me and said, ITIL is the enemy of DevOps. Now, what he meant was, in his experience, good old ITIL's version 2 and 3, there were a number of steps of governance. You couldn't move without having a change manager standing in your way. And his opinion, an agile fortnightly development and using Scrum, delivering things quickly was it was a bad fit. It was not exclusive. So what we found was by using VeriSM and by implementing some of these practices here, and by having a constant understanding of the market, of the techniques this guy needed to use, of what our consumers wanted, and how agile our developers had to be, I had to put something in place that met all or most of those requirements. So VeriSM is great, but what we always have to remember, sorry if I'm preaching to the converted here, the E of VeriSM stands for evolving. Therefore, this picture of the management mesh I've got here, I'd be very disappointed if in a year's time it looked the same, because if it does, it hasn't evolved. I haven't kept it current, so I will try and make sure it doesn't. So the first benefit I have experienced for Cloud Gateway and using VeriSM is using the management mesh to keep current initiatives on the table in front of all of the marketers, the developers, the sales, and the support people, by integrating different practices and by removing silos. So the management mesh is at the center of everything we do, and that's how I've achieved benefit number 1. Okay, benefit number 2. Oh, I think I might have jumped back. Bear with me a second. No, I wanted to make sure I hadn't accidentally hit. Oh, sorry, everybody. There was a slight delay. Here we go. There was a slight delay, and therefore I've moved it on too quickly. Bear with me a second. Right, got it. So benefit number 2. Now, having always worked for big corporate companies like Vodafone, like Ministry of Defence, sales and marketing was a completely strange world to me. But when I joined, I realised that, now obviously I'm not a marketing specialist. I couldn't be because I'd never really done anything about it. But I realised that without our marketing people getting our product out there, and without my support knowledge, putting in place something that could support the people that the marketers brought to us, it wouldn't work. So we all have to work together. So one of the benefits of using VeriSM is it improves our ability to understand the marketplace and the markets we're trying to sell into. And this is some of the ways we did it, a few bullet points. First of all, as Suzanne hinted at earlier on one of her slides, it comes down to leadership. We have a truly inspirational entrepreneur who leads Cloud Gateway, who understands his customers, his consumers, his market, and his colleagues, and he encourages us to work in a particular way. Within that, we have a dedicated marketing and sales team, and Miles from the marketing team is sitting beside me now. So Miles actually understands the market, the use of social media, the use of expos, the use of Twitter, how to get your name out there, how to get the message out there, how to increase awareness of your product and your company, which of course is what you need as a startup. And as part of this, we've got a meetup event organised in London next week on the 18th of June that's extensively been advertised on LinkedIn, where we're getting together a collection of peers and people interested in cloud computing and security. And we're going to actually give them a couple of presentations, introduce our product, tell them about digital transformation. I will obviously try and get VeriSM in as often as I can, because that's what I like to do. But that is an example of using a marketing technique to improve the product awareness and the company awareness, and make sure some of those items on the management mesh are brought together and work together. So benefit number 2 is it improves market understanding, and that's how I believe we've achieved it. Benefit number 3, if you've got the best product in the world, but no one's heard of it, you've completely wasted your time. So not only do people like Miles have to market and sell it, we have got to develop it rapidly and get it to BAU, to operational support, as quickly as we possibly can. So we do have targets, we have focus, we develop our products and our services flexibly to meet current and changing consumer demands. By adopting this VeriSM mindset, one of the first things I did was establish some governance rules. Now, I used to work for a large corporate integration organization that had 8 governance gates between talking to a first customer and going live. Now, that suited them and suited their business. I'm not being critical, but if you're in a startup in cloud computing where things can change on a weekly basis, you can't put 8 governance gates in people's way. It's completely self-defeating. So for our standardized cloud gateway product, I've reduced the governance gates to only 1. And for anything that doesn't quite fit that standard, that needs adapting or enhancing, I've reduced it to about 3, which I think are manageable. So our products and services benefit by having the minimum but necessary level of governance to control how they're developed and managed, but to get them quickly to market in a timely manner. And I'm going to talk you through these 3 governance gates over the next few slides. Okay, governance gate number 1. Again, this would not be used if we're selling a standard product and a standard SLA. This would be for some new development. And what you've got there is a screenshot of my end-to-end VeriSM support model, which I'll touch on again later. And as you can see in the diamond, again, using VeriSM language, guardrail is a very often and well understood and very useful expression. It's a guardrail. It keeps this vehicle on its journey on the tracks. So, as you can see, it has 3 inputs on the right. It has governance rules, service management principles, and management mesh. All of those are tools devised and maintained by me to keep the VeriSM model in place to make sure what we're developing can be developed quickly and meets our original consumer requirements. So it's a simple question, and it's a 10-minute meeting at the end of the define gate, at the define stage rather of VeriSM. Does this potential solution you're developing comply with our governance documentation? Are we following our own governance rules? Are we obeying our own service management principles? Are we obeying what's in the management mesh? And now again, being flexible, you have to understand that if the answer to any of those questions is no, I do not say the developers go back and rebuild it. I can't do that because that's just not feasible. So it may well be that the management mesh needs updating as a result of what they've just done. But it's a nice check and balance to have in place to say, look, VeriSM gives us some rules, not too many, but let's just see if we are obeying these minimal rules and what you guys are developing actually conforms to our own governance. So that's my governance gate number 1, the service management principles gate. Now, governance gate number 2 takes place in the produce phase of VeriSM, where you're starting to build something, you're building out something to meet your original consumer requirements. And again, if it's a standard instance of Cloud Gateway that we know how to build and implement and transition because we've done it before, we might even skip this stage. But I'm a big fan of ITIL-based change management, and we use the ServiceNow tool exclusively through our transition and operational support. So this is me saying, okay, guys, I can see that what you've developed past gate number 1, have we actually discussed this? Have we got a change record where we've actually assessed what you're doing against cost, against risk, against resourcing, against the market, and against everything on the management mesh? In other words, is this something that we can push through as an approved change to our business?
It's 15 hours.
Ooh, that's useful. Everybody probably heard that. That's my little timer set to tell me that I will stop in 9 minutes, I promise, at the latest. So this is a little simple gate where I say to our developers and our security and our support guys, look, let's make sure we've got a change record, so we've got a documented audit trail of where we came from, of where we're going and what we're doing. And assuming we pass that, now change gate number 3 is something many of you will recognize. This is essential. I do this for every new customer or every new product. It's called AILS, which stands for Acceptance into Live Service. Now, at the one level, it's simply a checklist. I sit down with my ServiceNow administrator and I say to him, have you got all the information you need to deliver to me ServiceNow ready to support to this customer? Can we check every box? Does the customer know the go live date? Does the customer know our service desk number? Do we know their service desk number? Do we understand the difference between a priority 1 and a priority 2 incident? Do we understand the change management process? And so on. We have this onboarding checklist that we go through. And this is a bit of a harder gate than some of the others. If the answer to some of the questions is no, we need to step back and do some risk management. For instance, if one of the questions is, have we plugged in all our SLAs into ServiceNow ready for this customer? And the answer is no, I wouldn't be prepared to go live without the SLAs being plugged into ServiceNow. But if one of the other questions was more manageable, you might move ahead and just add it to the risk register. So basically, this is my governance gate 3. It takes place right at the end of the produce phase of VeriSM, when you're about to actually provide it to the customer. And before we provide it, and certainly before we go into respond, I just want to know if both sides are ready to support the customer using my VeriSM model. We have weekly meetings with our product team and our ServiceNow administrators to keep all of this current and up to speed. So there you are, everybody. There's 3 simple governance gates that I put in place to make sure that everything we do in Cloud Gateway not only is kept in step with our consumer requirements, but follows our own guidance and is going to be supportable when it goes live. And my final benefit, therefore, is this one, an end-to-end view of an understanding of consumer needs. Now, VeriSM calls customers consumers. I've got no problem with that. But there's 2 key words here. There's consumer and there's communication. What we try and do at the start of an engagement with a new customer is actually write down some user scenarios, understand what the customer's business is and how they are going to be using Cloud Gateway. Those user scenarios are then fed into the design phase. So we're designing something that meets those scenarios. Those scenarios will also be used to populate our UAT, our user acceptance tests, because then we know we are testing against what the consumer originally asked us to do. So by doing this and by involving the consumer, we make sure that what we're developing and designing meets their requirements, enables them to have value added to their business, and enables us to sell, maintain, and support the service that the customers want to use and will come back and give us repeat business. So the final benefit is about understanding our consumer needs, but it will not work without having correct communication across all levels of the business. So very quickly, what I've done is I've run through 4 of the 15 stated benefits of VeriSM, and they are the 4 that basically I live and breathe every day. I mentioned several times my end-to-end VeriSM support model, and I will be honest, I cannot fit that on one slide. If I fitted it on one slide, none of you would be able to read it. So I've just screenshotted the top left-hand corner. So you can see, no matter how much technology moves on, you will not get me away from swim lanes and flowcharts because I love it. But look at the title of the vertical swim lanes to show how we work together. The consumer is on the left. Sales, marketing, HR is this next one. The development team have the middle swim lane. Now, obviously, development takes place lower down, so they don't feature that high up. And the final swim lane is the product and my service team. And as you can see, box 6 there, that plays to the last slide. Collect and document the high-level customer requirements. Those requirements are documented in the form of user case scenarios, which feed right through our model. So there is an example of my VeriSM-based support model. So how would I sum this up? I joined this company about 18 months ago when ITIL version 4 was just merely an idea in someone's mind. ITIL version 3 gave me some of what we needed to develop, implement, and support, but it didn't give us everything. I was pointed in the direction of VeriSM and I instantly became a convert. It gave me completely what I need. We were talking daily about DevOps, Agile, Shift Left, and of course, VeriSM plays to that and brings them all together. And it gives you the ability to adopt the best of the old and the new world. Cloud Gateway, as a result of the way we work together, and as a result of this VeriSM-based support model I've put in place and the benefits I've highlighted, we now have a number of very satisfied consumers. They see the output of this model in terms of rapidly implemented successful changes, reduced downtime, and to date, keep my fingers when I say when I cross this, to date, we haven't had a single attributable customer impacting incident because the products and services we design have so much resilience and redundancy built into them to meet the original consumer requirements collected at that box I just showed you. So my final point is this. Through a very useful partnership we've made with IFDC, who Suzanne has just described, and with ServiceNow, who we decided was the service management tool we needed to use, I like to think that as I approach the end of my career, working career, we're at the forefront of VeriSM implementation. I want to not just use VeriSM, I'm passionate about it, I'm an evangelist about it. I want to help it evolve and continually give people like us the products and services and the service management we need. So thank you very much for that. That's the end of my session. I'd like now to hand over to Satya. So if Namrata, you can do the clever stuff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we do.
No problem.
Thank you. Steve, that was really an insightful information about the various adoptions in Cloud Gateway. Especially, I liked the management mesh that you have created. It was very holistic and very comprehensive. Looking forward to more information on this. Greetings, everyone. My name is Satya Mishra. I'm working with HCL Technologies as IT Service Management Global Practice Head. I have been working with many consortiums and forums like VeriSM, IT4IT, ITLV4 in developing the next-gen service management solutions. Also, within HCL, I'm currently working as an architect to build the ZaaS service management framework, which uses ZaaS services and products within the HCL technology. So when we say ZaaS, it is anything and everything is considered to be a service. And when you, especially in the cloud world, it works really well. Well, today's topic is to talk about how HCL has applied VeriSM in its products and services. Let's go ahead with that. When we started, partnering with IFTC for VeriSM, right, we realized that there are considerable similarities and synergies between VeriSM and what HCL is trying to develop in its products and services for the next-gen IT service management solutions. So both of them is really focusing on supporting our customers on their digital transformation journey, which allows the business to focus to develop the business models rather than focusing on the technologies, right? And also both VeriSM and HCL is trying to create an IT operating model which is based on a value chain system, which essentially means that a value is created in each of the activities that we perform within the IT service lifecycle fulfillment systems for the business and consumers, right? And additionally, we also have seen that in today's world, the consumer has been given the highest level of priority, especially in the cloud or a SaaS world, right? So, so it is important that we have an IT service management system which is purely consumer centric. So, thanks to VeriSM to come out with something like which was never there, as a consumer-centric IT operating model, and which can be easily adapted for especially the people who are adapting the progressive service management concepts for DevOps, cloud, and agile service management systems. if you look very closely, like our own IT management systems is producing a wealth of data and information from various systems, be it an event management system or a DevOps systems or your run processes like your incident, problem, change, etc. Right? It produces humongous data which you can use it by having an analytical engineering systems. You can drive the contextual, predictive, and auto healing systems, right? So this is only can be possible when you have a good analytical systems like a big data for IT service management. So both VeriSM and HCL emphasize a lot on creating a central data warehouse systems where we can produce a lot of useful information for our business, for our IT, to make the systems much more highly responsive and agile. And finally, what we think is that both the VeriSM and HCL, they are believing in forward thinking, addresses the issues which are arriving from the disruptive innovations in the emerging technologies, and help the business to focus on their digital transformations. Let me see if I can. Yeah. So how we as a HCL Technologies as an organizations are getting benefit out of VeriSM, right? So VeriSM provide a varied set of best practices which are based on the next gen service management concepts for the especially for the adapters of progressive service management organizations or our customers in the digital transformation journey. So we are leveraging those best practices into our own products and services and frameworks that we offer to our esteemed customers, right? In HCL, we also believe in learning, unlearning, and relearning. This essentially means that every people in the organizations, they have to uplift their skill level, right? In the service management era, we have VeriSM as one of the strategic training that has been given and being produced to various set of people, right, who deal with the service management framework, and to ensure that they are highly skilled, they understand and apply the next gen service management concepts, and also they can speak in a common language what customer can understand in the digital age. And of course, it becomes easy for us also to sell our products and services or offerings to our business when we say that we are aligned to something like an industry best practices, which is famously known as VeriSM, and that creates a lot of confidence when we actually speak to the customers. And it also provides a lot of utilities tools within the book itself, right? You can go through the something like management creation tools, which is an spreadsheet based tool which takes a lot of input and produce a management mesh that you can create for your organizations. And also it has a lot of frameworks and methodologies which you can use to assess before the implementation. It also provides an implementation approach. How do you actually go and start with your customers, right? So there are many utilities that is available within the IFDC which we have used within our own implementations. So this slide talks about how HCL has implemented VeriSM or applied VeriSM framework within its service management frameworks. I don't want to really go into much of the details, right? I have developed a book, a white paper or a case study, which is available across the globe, which is published in the IFTC website. So you might want to actually refer that for more details. But one key message that I want to convey in this webinar is that though VeriSM is an end-to-end model, but it does not really necessarily sorry that you have to implement the entire set of value streams in one go, right? In VeriSM, it is absolutely supporting the pragmatic approach. So you can actually implement the one which is more resonating, which solves the CIO's immediate problems, right? And can choose the one which is implementable in the first phase, and you can subsequently implement the remaining of the phases. So in HCL, we chose to start with provide and respond. These are the two value streams which we think that which is very, very important. And if I have to give what is rational behind Provide. Provide was very bit of disruptive. It was never there in any of the traditional service management world. This actually act as an interface between a service consumer and a service provider, right? Particularly when especially for the subscription based services, it is very imperative to have a complete system of engagement between the consumer and the service provider in order to drive the highest level of consumer experience or consumerizations. So in HCL, we tried to create an enterprise level marketplace experience which resembles to um, any of your e-commerce website like Flipkart or Amazon, where you can access the varied set of catalog items coming out from the different catalog databases offered by different service providers and being hosted into a single moment of truth for the consumers. The same thing that we have implemented here for the IT, all the by the means of having its own peripheral components, like catalog aggregation is the first one, which aggregates the catalog items coming and hosted from various suppliers. A self-service support, a crowdsourced knowledge management systems, and entitlement based profiling, which actually checks what are the consumers and default entitlement and provide direct access to those services for consumptions. A shopping cart that gives a lot of user experience for the user to choose their own set of services that he want to consume for, and so on, right? So there are many other such things, such powerful elementary peripheral components which becomes important, which you need to build within the respond value streams. Now in the also for especially for the cloud world, when things are being consumed on subscription basis, it is also very important to build those native processes such as usage, chargeback, service orchestrations, fulfillment. All of them plays a very important role, so we need to create their components within that platform. So we have created processes, we have created best practices, and also we also have created these components within the platform so that it is available for our consumers to have real-time check on what is that they are consuming, what is their current usage, how much they are being, their business units are being charged back. And just to talk about why respond, because this value stream ensures that the potential issues are proactively identified and resolved before the impact is felt to the end users. And this is something that we have achieved by having an auto healing systems in combination of machine learning and cognitive assistance collaborations, and which actually work together to sense the issues within the environment proactively and fix them before the impact is felt to the end user. Well, I don't want to actually go into talk about much detail about the white this implementation case study. I would request everyone to go through that, and if you have any specific questions, I'll happy to answer them in the QA sessions. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Namrata for the proceedings.
Thank you, Satya, for the lovely presentation, and Steve as well as Suzanne. So now we can welcome some questions so that we can answer them, and you are having the right answers to all of your questions. So I see there is a question coming up, and that says, what are the major differences between VeriSM and ITIL 4?
I'd be happy to answer that one, perhaps, Namrata, if that's okay with everyone. So, I mean, I think that I think Steve mentioned it in his part as well, that actually 6.6 Cloud Gateway was already using ITIL, and they're still using ITIL. And what VeriSM has done is it's helped them to build on that and bring in other elements such as Agile and DevOps and integrate them and govern them effectively under one model. you know, in terms of the difference between ITIL and VeriSM, it's a different question. It's a difficult question to answer in that way, because it's like comparing apples and pears, and that's what I meant with VeriSM is not another framework. You know, ITIL is very useful for what it is. It's a best practice framework, and it can be very useful to apply a best practice framework. And obviously, that's the reason ITIL has been very successful in the past years. VeriSM is a different purpose. It's really an umbrella framework, and I think that's sort of what I was trying in my introduction to get at, the fact that, you know, probably 10 years ago we were all looking for a silver bullet, and maybe 10 years ago ITIL was able to be that silver bullet. But most of us, because of the complexity of the digital age, the complexity of the business environment that we're operating in, you know, most organizations have realized that there is no silver bullet. And as a result, you need to bring together different technologies, bring together different practices in order to be able to reach your outcomes and you know, produce value via products and services. So, you know, the difference between VeriSM and ITIL is that they're actually very different beasts, let's say. ITIL is a best practice framework, and best practice frameworks can be very useful, especially in fairly predictable environments, because, you know, why would you try and reinvent the wheel if somebody's already, you know, tried and tested a certain practice and it's considered to be best practice. But in the complexity of the digital age, quite often you can't just replicate something that another organization has done, because all organizations are unique and the environment is very complex. And then you need more a mindset that you need to try and to apply, and you probably need to bring together different practices as part of the solution. And that's what VeriSM does with its umbrella approach.
Right. Thank you, Suzanne, for that. We have our next question, that is, how often the mesh needs to be revised? I think Steve may answer that.
Thank you, Namrata. Yeah, I was about to hold my hand up for that, which works much better when you come off mute, doesn't it? Yes. Now, I could fall back on my good old ITIL answer when I was an ITIL trainer. It depends, but in reality, that's a very glib answer. The management mesh needs to be refreshed every time a new management practice or a new environmental issue or a new development factor or a new management technique or anything that is actually going to impact what and how you work and your customers and how you get it to market. So any new idea, innovation or technique that appears that's going to affect even slightly what you are doing as a provider and developer, that is when the management mesh needs to be revised. So as an example, I know Suzanne Van Hove gave a very good session on the management mesh a few months ago, and I was very pleased and honoured that as an example she used my very early diagram as one of the examples. Well, mine's moved on, because since then we've employed a cybersecurity specialist who's making us aware of some of the current and perceived security threats we need to be aware of. ITIL 4 has appeared, so straight away there were two influencing factors there that said I need to bring them into my mesh. And I'm sure there's another one just around the corner. So the answer is your management mesh must be up to date. It must give you what you want, and you must keep it up to date. And the minute something comes along that's going to influence how you work, such as new government legislation, for example, Brexit perhaps might have an influence, but who knows? So anyway, that's the answer. Anything that's going to influence your development as a supplier or as a customer, that's when you need to upgrade your management mesh. I hope that's a reasonable answer.
One question related to that, which teams must be involved in creating the management mesh?
Would you like me, Namrata, to take that one as well, or would you like me to pass that one on?
I think you may, continue,
okay.
because
well,
that is related.
The answer is simple. The answer is everybody, because the whole point of VeriSM is it breaks down silos and it gets everybody working together. So if you were to say, I'm going to upgrade my management mesh, but I'm only going to talk to the marketing department, or I'm only going to talk to the development guys, then the other people wouldn't know what's going on and wouldn't be able to add any value to it. So I honestly believe that every department that's involved in design, delivery, or supporting your product should be involved in the management mesh. So that's my simple answer, everyone.
Right. So I have one more question coming up. So we have so many service management frameworks available. How to decide when to choose VeriSM and when to choose others?
You want me to take that one?
Yep.
It is fairly complex, like the question itself, right? So what framework is important and how does it really work, right? So so first of all, you need to actually see that what is the strategies and what is the adoptions level of disruptive technologies or emerging technologies within the organizations, and how the organization is shaping themselves in terms of adapting the next gen solutions like DevOps or delivery model or cloud. The soon you have to move to the next the emerging technologies and delivery model, and you want to meet the velocity what the business wanted these days in the digital world. The service management systems will also has to be updated. So in current at this point of time, till ITIL v4 comes, right, we don't really know that what exactly this is the only service management framework which is available, which you can actually adapt, which is really a practical guide. If you look into the details of the framework or the the entire book is based on the practical scenarios, examples, and the approaches, right? You can straight away pick them up and start practicing it in your next gen service management operating model. I
Right.
hope that answers it.
Yep. Yep. So our next question would be, what is the target audience for VeriSM, like IT departments or service organizations in general, or somebody else?
So maybe I can answer that one, Namrata. Obviously, because VeriSM is an enterprise-wide approach, the target group is broader than just IT, which is perhaps what some of you are familiar with from ITIL. And in order to be successful, obviously you would need to have the different parts of the organization would need to be all working together, and in that way it would be very useful if they are familiar with the VeriSM model. But of course they don't all need to be experts in VeriSM in the same way that the whole organization, even the whole IT organization, doesn't have to be an expert in ITIL either. So yeah, the target group is broad, it's enterprise wide, but of course there will be certain people, champions. They may be in IT, but they may be in other departments. We've seen some ambassadors and champions coming also from other departments like quality. So yeah, it can be driven sometimes from different types of departments with a slightly different perspective. But of course, as an enterprise-wide approach, what you want to do is develop that service mindset across the whole organization. Not everybody has to be a VeriSM expert, but everybody should understand what is that mindset, what are those behaviors that you need to be successful in the digital age.
Thank you, Suzanne. The next one is how VeriSM will help in the current digital world where speed is critical.
So, Namrata, was that where speed is critical?
Yeah, speed is critical.
I think as Satya and Suzanne took a couple of questions, does anybody mind if I took that one?
Yeah, sure.
Please go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
It's absolutely a brilliant question. Speed is critical. In the cloud gateway world, if we spend more than several weeks between iterations and developments, somebody will get there before us or the customer will have moved on. So where speed is critical, what VeriSM enables you to do is it enables the developers to get on and develop things in a very quickly in a number of agile sprints, but it enables us also to apply the minimum governance, as I talked about in my presentation. So where speed is of the essence, it positively encourages people to do quickly, to fail fast and fail early, to actually deliver things quickly that can be reviewed, because it basically VeriSM embraces the very idea of doing things quickly and gives you a tool set to do it. That would be my answer.
Right. Thank you, Steve. And the next question would be, what is the significant difference between the level 3 of VeriSM certification? between the 3 level of VeriSM certification? Sorry about it. So what is the significant difference between the 3 level of VeriSM certification? I think Suzanne, you may go for it.
Yeah, so the VeriSM Essentials is really about the basics of that service mindset and the VeriSM model. It's really covering those basics around what mindset, what behaviors do you need to have, how can you structure it, what does the model look like. The VeriSM Plus is really for people that already have some kind of service management certification and basically just want to kind of update their skills to include you know, emerging technologies and progressive management practices. And the foundation is actually the Essentials and the Plus together. So it covers both the VeriSM model and mindset part, plus the part around emerging technologies and management practices, and brings them together in the foundation. So that's all on that foundation level, if you like. There's then the professional level, which is really about applying VeriSM in practice. There's a lot of emphasis on applying the VeriSM model, applying the management mesh, really understanding how to apply in practice the guidance which is given for structuring for digital transformation success. So that's the VeriSM professional, and we're also looking at the VeriSM leader, but that's not available yet. That will be in the future. And the VeriSM professional, you don't necessarily need foundation as a prerequisite for it. It's recommended, but if you feel like you can get the experience and the knowledge to go directly to the VeriSM professional level, it's also possible.
All right, so I hope we have answered all the questions so far, and I see that was the last question. Yes, so we are almost end of the webinar, and should you have more questions, please feel free to contact us, and we will be glad to help you. And those who are interested to know more about VeriSM certifications or modules, we are going to share the information shortly after this session. Also, there will be a feedback form right after this webinar. Feel free to fill it out for our help. Thank you so much. Thank you all for attending today and joining us, giving your important time, and have a lovely day.
Yep, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.